We've learned a lot since Sweet Fuse. I feel like we're actually doing better at this game than the last time, or at least we have more control. But I'm just winging it, so what do I know? Now what sounds like the most fun? They all just kind of sound like fighting. I won't go grumpy or quiet guy or too happy guy. I guess I'll go with too happy guy. We'll go with Haruda. I decided to accompany Haruda to the Kuge Gate. When we arrived, it was immediately clear that the flight had not been so decisive as the one at Hamaguri. Or the fight, excuse me. Fight or flight, either one. The Judiciary Commissioner's men who had moved to Kuge from Hamaguri were still engaged with a number of Choshu's soldiers who had refused to yield. You should probably stay here, Chizuru. It's gonna get pretty dangerous out there. Before I could even respond, he was off, the rest of the Shinsengumi thundering into the battle behind him. Man, never let me do stuff. If you want to get to the Imperial Estate, you're gonna have to get through us first. Even in the middle of battle, a little twist of a grin at the corners of Haruda's mouth never wavered. Damn it, is that the Shinsengumi? Damn right it is. If any of you are looking for a quick, glorious death, come at me. You bastard! War cries rose up from both sides, and battle was joined. This time, however, the force defending the Imperial Estate had the Shinsengumi on their side. The battle did not last long. In fact, it lasted exactly one fade-out. Is this the best we can do? A great moan of pain went up from the soldiers of the Choshu. Don't let him escape! After them! The officers of the Judiciary Commissioner shouted to their men, who slowly began to advance. They had scarcely begun to move, however, when the man covering the Choshu escape turned and faced them. Oh, hi there! I like your... I hope you feel honored, boys. It looks like I'm gonna be playing with you for a bit. Oh, bang bang. Damn it, he's got a revolver. It is the mid-1800s and he has a revolver. And he just sidearmed that. He is the truest gangster out of all of us. We were all like feudal gangsters, but he's like straight contemporary. There was a flash of silver and a sound like a crack of thunder filled the air. What? Witchcraft! What is that sorcery? There's alien technology on the field! The officer who had just given the order to pursue let out an agonizing scream and collapsed to the ground. He lay there quite still, and a pool of blood slowly began to form beneath him. That was when I realized what that flash of silver had been. The weapon called the pistol. I had never seen one before, but I've heard of them. They were cylinders of metal that used explosive power to fire small metal balls. This were small, one-handed versions of this type of weapon, which was known as a gun. As we stood there, I realized that it had likely been this very gun that had scarred Hamaguri Gate. Okay. Was that? The sound of my pistol scare ya? He looked pointedly at the remaining officials, his mouth drawn open in a toothy grin. I didn't think it was his pistol that kept them at a distance, however. It was the man himself. He was clearly outnumbered, but looked no more concerned than if he were facing no enemies at all. He's like, I've got the magic wand. Do any of you have one of these? Boop, 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 and everyone's dead, except me. It was clear to everyone present that he was no normal man. I have a giant stick. And I'm fighting a man with a little tiny gun. I think I'm going to win this one. Oh, sure was nice for you to play with us, but don't you think it's a little unfair if you're the only one with a gun? Haruda! Haruda moved a few steps closer to the stranger. Really? Nah, seems fair to me. Besides, you got that big old pig sticker of yourself. Both men grinned a challenge to one another. Almost too fast to see, the point of Haruda's spear swept through the air toward the stranger, who leaned out of the way at the last moment. Oh, you seem to be spoiling for a fight. Seriously, though, who charges a man holding a gun? Using a toy to try and keep others at a distance is pathetic for a warrior and for a man, wouldn't you agree? The stranger grinned. What are you, some kind of Feudal warrior? Please. Spins gun on finger. I'm Kyo Shiranui, or Mr. Shiranui to you. You may introduce yourself as well. I'm Sanosuke Harada, the captain of the Shinsengumi's 10th Division. They seemed to see one another not so much as enemies, but more as opponents. The air between them was tense, but I felt no evil intent from either of them. But what should I do? Hey! How about let's get rid of Shiranui? Chizuru, what are you? If I was honest with myself, I was terrified. The strange man was very dangerous, but Harada had seen something in him, so perhaps he would hear me out. I didn't let Harada finish. Mr. Shiranui, right? Could you leave now? Huh? What the hell, kid? If you're trying to screw with me, I'll end you right here. I felt a cold bead of sweat roll down my spine. This I thought must be how a frog feels when it catches the eye of a snake. But I'd opened my mouth. There's no going back now. Well, all of the Choshu's soldiers have run away. Although he hadn't said anything, he'd clearly been serving as a sort of rear guard for the Choshu during their retreat. Now that they were gone... If they're gone, do you still have a reason to fight? His eyebrows went up, and he looked at me more closely, with surprise and something else. Our job is to protect the Imperial estate. If you still insist on drawing your gun, He let out an exasperated sigh and... put his gun back in his holster. You've got balls, kid, I'll give you that. I'm feeling pretty good about meeting new people today. Don't let this go to your head, though. Next time I won't go so easy on you, or on Harada here. As casually as he could, Harada had moved to place himself in between me and Shiranui. Fine, fine. Fine by me. I've got plenty of friends, but I could use a good enemy. Let's just save the fun for later, shall we? Maybe this time. But I'm not the kind of guy who likes to employ this anticipation, if you know what I mean. And with a raucous laugh, he was gone. Bye, this guy's rival, I guess. Do they all get rivals? Is that, like, the thing? Harada headed off in the direction Shiranui had gone for a few hundred feet, then returned once he was sure the man had actually left. I'd finally allowed myself to begin to relax when Harada gave me a short tap on the head. Be more careful. Okay. He hadn't said much, but even those few words had been enough to let me know that he'd been worried about me. Thank you. Sorry for, Harada looked at me for a moment before he spoke. Nah. I think you did the right thing. After all, none of our guys got hurt, right? Besides, the commander's orders were to fight off the Choshu if they showed up. It's not our job to track them down. Right. Yeah, I'm the best at my job. I know what I'm doing. He looked sad. If they run now, they'll only feel worse. What? But even as I asked, I realized what he meant. The men who'd fled had come all the way from Choshu just for this battle. Now they'd lost. How could they return home in disgrace? Their choice to turn and run meant that they had nowhere to return to now. I've got a feeling we haven't seen the last of that Shiranui guy. I didn't say it, but I felt the same, especially because I knew his name now. Pretty good sign in this kind of situation. I hope we don't. Harada was one of the captains of the Shinsengumi, and so long as Shiranui was allied with the Choshu, there was no doubt they would only meet as enemies. Aw, he just wants to be friends. He did manage to dodge my spear. I guess he'll be a challenging opponent. Still, my job's to fight the enemies. That's what I do. Harada. There was no mistaking the resolve in his voice. I was sure that the man called Shiranui would no doubt prove a dangerous foe. But there was something in that smile Harada gave me then that made me feel at ease. With the battle at Kuge Gate finally at an end, the men who remained began to catch up. I began as best I could, removing rubble and tending to the wounded, glad that the battle was finally over. So that looks like it leaves us another episode over. It seems to be kind of going in like episodes. It'll jump a couple months and then some big thing will happen that all ends in this nice thing. It's very episodic like that. The Choshu extremists attempted to attempted attack on the imperial estate eventually came to be known as the Hamaguri Rebellion. Although the Shinsengumi were called to action, their efforts were stymied, and they found little in the way of glory. Communication with their superiors had been poor at best, and they spent much of the battle waiting with the reserves. When the Shinsengumi did finally enter the battle, they found several strange opponents awaiting them. Womp womp. Chikage Kazuma, the man who had defeated Okita at Ikeda, claimed to be from the Satsuma domain during his encounter with Hijikata, but now the Satsuma domain is on Team Us, so that's weird. Kyuju Amagiri, the man who had shattered Heisuke's head guard at Ikeda, also claimed membership in the Satsuma. Okay. They'd also met Kyo Shiranui, who'd fought alongside men from Choshu. Whoever they were, it was clear that they were not allies of the Shinsengumi. Indeed, it seemed they could easily become some of its greatest enemies. If they were to meet in open battle, the casualties would be severe. By the time the battle was over, the commanders of the Choshu attack had been killed in the fighting or taken their own lives. There were some soldiers, however, who escaped, setting Kyoto ablaze as they left. Rude, and just mad they lost. By some terrible misfortune, the wind that day blew from the north and fanned the flames, reducing the southern end of the imperial estate to ash. That's a bummer, man. Real bummer. As a result of the Choshu attack, many imperial nationalists were executed. After everything had been sorted out, the Shinsengumi were at last given permission to patrol outside of Kyoto from Osaka to Hyogo. Okay, so our political mission went great. No sooner had they been given permission than they set to work, rounding up unruly Ronin and defending the public good. With the Hamaguri Rebellion over, the Choshu were branded as traitors for attacking their estate. From then on, they were acknowledged enemies of the court. Okay, so politically speaking, Team Shinsengumi are winning. That's good. Now we're on Chapter 2. We've kind of been introduced to all the characters. We've got a couple rivals. Apparently not every pathway ends in a rival, but 3 out of 5 of them do, so okie dokie. Interesting how it went exactly as planned. I'm just wondering, usually by the time like Chapter 1 is over or something, that usually means like at some point, either now or somewhere later, it's going to cut off and we're going to branch out into one of the 5 main paths. If everything goes the same way that Sweet Fuse kind of did. And it should be early on, it should be soonish if not now, based on seemingly arbitrary decisions that we make, or just choosing to go the same way as some other dude, bro. But yeah, I feel like we might have one more chapter, because I feel like there's got to be at least one more decision that could be made to break any ties that we currently have with 3 dudes. So hopefully we'll be in control of that. Hopefully it won't be an esoteric decision of like waking up in the morning versus hitting the snooze alarm, and that meaning some kind of, I don't even know. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us thus far on Hakuoki, Demon of the Fleeting Blossom. And once again, thank you so much to SprawlRat, who has just been absolutely amazing. And we will see you all next time for more Hakuoki.